Well,
Welcome and bienvenue. Welcome.
welcome to Film versus Film, Episode 1. I am Rot10Glory, joined today by my co-host, the creator and writer of Six Gun Gorilla, Brian Christgau. How are you doing?
Doing good. Hanging
Good.
in there. Maintaining during.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of all are in that mode, aren't we? A little
Oh
bit.
God, the heat is just freaking brutal, man. It's like even if you're inside all day with the
Yeah,
AC running, it's like somehow it still manages to like come pouring through the cracks in the walls and kick your ass.
yeah, for sure. Um, so I guess to start off, we'll just kind of explain I guess the premise behind film versus film.
Hmm.
What we want to do is take films that either kind of share DNA, some kind of common thread or theme, or just the nature of the film. There's some kind of connection there. Or in future episodes, we'll probably do originals versus remake. There's so much to draw from there because they've been awfully busy on that front lately.
Oh God. Well, it slowed down. It's like when the
Yeah,
RoboCop remake came out and it bombed. I think that kind of like it didn't put like an entire full stop on like the remake machine,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it definitely slowed it down, which I think is a good thing because they were just remaking shit because they were like, oh, that made money back then, so
right,
this is a safe bet, as opposed to like filmmakers being inspired by
exactly.
a classic film and saying, you know, what would be interesting would be if we took that story and we did this with it.
Yeah, that's always a much better, when that is the case. And I wonder too if some of these studios are they just putting something out there because of like a licensing or just to
That
hold the rights
happens.
to it? Like,
That
is that ever
happens.
part of it?
That happens sometimes. That happens
Yeah.
sometimes, without a doubt. And then you have, like in 1990, George Romero produced and wrote a remake of Night of the Living Dead, specifically so the people who had made the original film and produced the original film and put their money up could make some money because they really fucked up and they didn't copyright it. And so Night of the Living Dead has been in the public domain since forever. So
Right.
all the VHS sales, all the DVD, all that
No.
crap, they didn't see a penny.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So Romero did that as a favor to
That was cool.
yeah. Because of course, he didn't make any money off it either, but he went on to have this very illustrious career where these other people didn't. So he was like, and as a filmmaker, he always had a kind of like a family attitude. That's to
Yeah.
say, every couple of years, he and his friends would get together and make a movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Lucius
yeah.
streaming solo with another man. I know, Lucius.
Hey,
It's okay.
we can always bring other people in here potentially. Get a 3-way going, 4-way going.
Yeah.
We're not conservative like that.
Lucius and I are doing a thing. We're going into the series devs
Oh, I
from
haven't
Alex
watched that
Garland.
yet. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
watched that yet. What is that on, by the way?
it's you can get it on Hulu. I think it was on FX, but
Okay.
Hulu has a whole like all the FX shows, and FX has just been knocking them out of the park. Honestly,
Have
a
they?
lot of experimentation. They're willing to like really go out on a limb. I feel and
That's
let yeah.
that's where all the creative energy is right now. It's in television.
I
It's
know.
definitely not in the freaking movies.
That's for sure.
It's not on the big screen. It's all on the small screen, which
Yeah.
is cool, and because of course artists get to work, storytellers get to work with a much larger tapestry, but then it's also discouraging because of course I mean I miss going to the cinema and seeing a 90-minute movie that kicks ass, seeing a 2-hour
Yeah.
movie that kicks ass, rather than like every movie now has to be 3 hours. And I like that movies can
Uh,
be 3 hours, but it doesn't mean every movie should be 3 hours long.
no, in fact, it's really rare where a movie should be 3 hours.
I
It has
absolutely
worked. There's been a few that
Lawrence of
works
Arabia, right? But not
right,
every movie is Spartacus.
right, right. Dances with Wolves is one that sticks out to me. Is like the length was
Mhm.
justified.
Absolutely. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Once Upon a Time in the
Yes,
West. You
yes,
know,
yeah,
how Leone, it's like every time he kept coming back to the genre, the movies got longer and bigger and longer and bigger and longer and bigger. But it was like in a great way because, of course, Leone. And it's funny when you see other filmmakers imitating him and trying to do that, right? Like if you watch the beginning of the Book of Eli, it's very clear that was it the Hudlin brothers? I forget who directed that, but anyway, it was the guys who did Menace to Society and Dead
mm,
Presidents. But you watch the opening of that, and it's very slow and it's very plodding, and you can tell like, oh, they're trying to do Sergio Leone. They're trying to do
right,
like the opening to Once Upon a Time in the West, where the first like 10, 15 minutes of the movie is literally three guys waiting.
right,
But it's like the most exciting, gripping waiting you've
yeah,
ever seen in your life.
yeah.
And,
It's something that's really been lacking in films, I think, of late, is that patience, that willing, and just the craftsmanship to create tension in moments. Like, there's just no patience anymore, and every film
always a
has to.
quick
They
editing.
want to drop you into the most insane, intense moment, and then it's like 3 weeks earlier. Fucking
Right.
so tired of that shit, dude.
I know. I do too. I do too. Well, I mean, that's the thing is they don't have respect for their audience.
Right.
They don't have a respect for the intelligence of their audience, and seeing what people will go and see. you can sort of understand
Hmm.
that, but
Yeah.
I think you can still make films intelligent and in a way that's not going to alienate the neuron deprived people in the audience.
Agreed. Yeah, it's entirely possible. Um,
Christopher Nolan, for instance, is a master of that.
right. Yeah, he does. He does bring both to the table pretty well. Do you?
Absolutely.
This is kind of a little off the topic here, but do you think theaters going to the movies in a theater? Do you think that's done?
No, I don't think it's done. I think the
You
cinema will always be a well, the cinema stopped being a special place once they created multiplexes. Most people aren't aware of this, but movie theaters back in the day were palaces, and they had themes, right? Like the most famous would be Man's Chinese Theater,
mm-hmm.
and so it was like an event going to see a film.
Right.
And I remember there was the Route 4 Theater. That's where I saw Star Wars. That's where I saw The Empire Strikes Back. That's where I saw that fair to middling 1977 Dino De Laurentiis remake of King Kong.
Yeah.
And it was a huge, 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 huge theater. And every seat was a good seat. You could
Yeah.
sit anywhere in the theater the way it was designed, and it was a great seat. And then, of course, they chopped it up and ruined this magnificent theater. I think what we're gonna see is I think we're gonna start seeing simultaneous releases. That's to say, I think mainstream movies are going to have to start doing what independent movies have been doing. That is releasing films simultaneously on the same day in theaters and on streaming, like
Oh,
on
okay.
demand.
Right.
So, like if an art film opens up and it's playing in the cities, well, you can go see it in a movie theater. But if you're not living like in a city or in a college town that has like an art house theater,
Right.
you're screwed. But oh, check it out! You can watch it on demand.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I think
I'm also wondering if people, after everything that's gone on with this, what I feel is a really overhyped situation with
there's a lot of
COVID.
people dead, bro.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people dead every year from the flu.
No,
And
that's true.
I'm not saying it's not more serious, but to crush the world's economy over it, I don't know. And I don't know if people are going to go back and sit elbow to elbow in a theater again.
Well,
Like, I don't know.
I know that my man Joe Bob Briggs and I are hoping that this will lead to the return of the drive-in.
Oh
But
yeah.
if there
Right.
is a return to the drive-in, if we start having drive-ins again, and they're showing like like the latest Marvel movie, I don't want to watch that crap. If I'm going to a drive-in, I want to see drive-in movies. I want to see some
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
trash.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll spark, bring that back. Maybe
It
it'll
could.
inspire directors to do that. Yeah, I think there's been activity at drive-ins because of all this already. I think it's happening a
Absolutely.
little bit. Sure.
Yep. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Um, yeah. So the film versus film today is Chopper versus Bronson. Now, Chopper officially came out in 2000,
Yep.
and Bronson came out in 2008.
Yes.
Now, the director of Chopper is Andrew Dominic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what was there was a movie of his I just absolutely, I'm kind of just in love with it. Oh, The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward
Robert
Robert Ford.
Ford. Fantastic
Absolutely,
movie.
just love. There's a scene,
Right?
the train scene at night, and the way that the lighting and the shadows and the whole tone of it. Just
Beautiful.
I was mesmerized by that whole film.
Wasn't it? We were talking before about does every movie have to be 3 hours long? That's a movie that's 3 hours long, and you're like, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it kept me nailed to my freaking seat.
yes. And
That's a great film. Beautiful score by
yeah,
Nick
who was that?
Cave. Nick Cave.
Yes, Nick Cave, man. So awesome. I love that he has been doing that, and I think he's done a score or two outside of this film.
He's written
Um,
screenplays. He
yeah.
was well he wrote the Proposition,
Oh,
which
right.
is like an
Oh,
Australian
brutal,
Western, which is
brutal.
brutal, awesome movie, right?
Yeah.
And he was also he wrote a draft of the remake of The Crow, but that's never been
Oh.
made. So
Oh, that's too bad. That's
yeah. I don't know if it's floating in the ether out there somewhere, but
damn.
yeah, he wrote
Yeah,
a
I could
draft.
see that. I would imagine he could tap right into the essence of that.
Oh, without a doubt,
Damn,
without a doubt.
that's too bad.
Yeah,
But yeah, this, clearly a very skilled director. It's
fantastic.
interesting to me that I wouldn't have, if I watched Hopper and then I watched The Assassination of Jesse James, and I didn't know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's the same director.
No, not at
It
all.
wouldn't occur to me at all.
No, definitely not. But
So,
not every director has an incredibly distinctive style. There's certain directors, like if you're watching a Sergio Leone movie, you're watching a Sergio Leone movie almost immediately because they're so idiosyncratic. And yeah, no, they are very different films. And I think that's not saying anything bad about him as a director.
yeah.
Sometimes it's great watching filmmakers playing around with style and maybe trying to do something different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's almost too much pressure on, and that not just in film, but almost any artistic endeavor to, you have to find that style and lock it in, because if you deviate from it at all, once you establish it, your fans will hate you for it.
Oh, absolutely. Quentin Tarantino, as I always call him, without a doubt. The one film of his that is is his fans, their least favorite film of his is Jackie Brown,
Of
which I
course.
think is easily his best film.
Right.
But it's the least Tarantino-esque because it's
Correct.
based on a novel as opposed to being a collage of other people's movies.
Yeah. No, I get that. So yeah, it's, it's almost like a prison, I think, at times for
It can be.
creators. If you can't get out of it once you establish it. You can't. It's like you can't do anything. And how boring, to spend a lifetime creating the same feeling and tone and vibe, like having that be all you can do. I think is that's tough. I think like Wes Anderson switching to animation, I think that gave him a little bit of an opportunity to like maybe break away a little. Um,
Oh,
just
sure.
you know, but it's
David
like, yeah,
Cronenberg
right.
is another guy. who stopped making Cronenberg movies.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like look at something like Eastern Promises. That's an excellent film. And yet at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Stephen Frears could have directed this. But only David Cronenberg can make a David Cronenberg movie. So please, Mr. Cronenberg, go back to making David Cronenberg movies.
Yeah. See, there you go. It's like, we want that. We want our fix. Once they've got us hooked on their style and this way of presenting stories, we don't want them to stop doing it. I get that.
Yeah. And you can also understand, and you understand why they want to do something different. Maybe they want respectability finally, or maybe they're just tired of doing the same old thing. And yet, if you look at David Cronenberg's work up until recently, his last three or four films have been not very good. Right. And they're not bad, because David Cronenberg David Cronenberg is like bad Martin Scorsese. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good. Yeah. But when you look at the earlier films, oh my God.
Yeah. It's a whole different level for sure.
Yeah.
So Chopper, what's your initial impression? What is it?
Chopper. Yes, Chopper is a biopic, highly fictionalized, based on the life of a certain Chopper Reed. Chopper Reed is Australia's equivalent of Iceberg Slim. Iceberg Slim is an American author who was a pimp who wrote a book, a very famous one, called Pimp. Guess what it's about? Which is an autobiographical a novel about his life as a pimp. And Chopper Reed he passed away a few years ago, was a career criminal who, while in prison, became a best-selling author. And it's interesting that a lot of people have seen Bronson, but they haven't seen Chopper. And I think that's what's cool about doing this show is all y'all that have seen Bronson, you need to go back and see Chopper, because it's the better movie. And that's not a diss.
I knew that you would. I knew you were gonna choose Chopper as the better movie. I don't know why.
Just is.
I just knew.
It just is.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't. I might have to disagree with you on that.
Oh, that's fine.
And I think you're right in terms of viewership. Like, even if you look on the IMDb page, 35,000 reviews, nice score.
Mm-hmm.
But Bronson, 116,000 reviews.
Yeah. Well, because it's also new.
I'm sure a lot of it has to do, it's retroactive because Tom Hardy became Tom Hardy.
Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely more people need to see Chopper. It's not easy to find either.
I know, now. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I had some trouble finding it. I finally was able to because it's been quite a long time, so I wanted to watch it again, and it was difficult to get a hold of the thing.
You see, I own a copy, so I just busted it out. But
nice.
Yeah, I don't think it's available on any of the streaming services.
No, it isn't. Definitely not.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
and it's a shame because it deserves a wider audience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a very good movie, but it gives me the violence in Chopper, like the underlying attitude of it, the feel of it is very, it's uncomfortable.
Yes, it's horrific.
And obviously it wants to be that.
Absolutely.
That's what it's shooting for, and it succeeds gloriously.
Absolutely. Like there's that classic scene where, Chopper Reed was a guy who had a lot of, let's say, mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And Eric Bana, that's who... incredible transformation, chameleon-like performance. Whenever I hear people diss Eric Bana because they know him from like the Hollywood movies, I'm like, go and watch Chopper, and tell me that dude's not a freaking awesome actor.
Yeah,
I mean, not only did he transform his body, as Tom Hardy did also, but just in terms of how he studied Chopper Reed himself, all the little tics and mannerisms, it's pretty astounding. But there's a scene where he's locked up. This is when he's younger, and he stabs this guy in the face like 500,000 times.
Yeah.
Basically for looking at him the wrong way. Because he starts developing all these like fantasies, you know what I mean? He starts like going, "Oh, I think that guy's maybe planning to kill me," or he's paranoid.
Yeah, it's his mental process on what leads him to violence is almost always very errant. It's very false. It's very
he's always
not
killing the wrong
it's
people.
not reality. Yeah.
He's always killing. That's the thing about Chopper. He's always killing the wrong people. And it's this wonderful scene where he stabs this dude in the face like 500 billion times.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, "Oh shit." And this guy is like lying there bleeding to death. Yep. And Chopper starts apologizing to him and even offering him a cigarette. "Here, man, want to smoke?" And the guy's like, "Oh," like trying to get away from this freaking maniac.
Yeah, it was man, it's a very stark. The whole movie feels like that, and it's very the way he instantly it's like he instantly regrets. He knows that
always
he let his mind go there where he just loses it.
Yep.
But he wants to. It's like he wants to go there. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
But he does regret the moment it happens. He's like, "Oh, damn it."
Yep. And that's why it's worth mentioning. Although the violence in this film is incredibly brutal, it's not romanticized in any way, shape, or form. It's still a really funny movie. There's still a lot of humor in this.
I can't.
It's
the kind of humor that you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's the kind of humor where there's a guilt aspect to it. Like you're almost like you laugh, but then you're like almost like the character. You're like, "I really shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't be laughing at this."
Exactly, and that's how the director is like yanking you around emotionally. But let's also not forget that. I believe the reason why human beings have a sense of humor is so that we can tolerate the horrors of the world without going completely fucking insane. And if you look at humor, if you've studied humor, you'll see that very often humor is related to really horrible things.
Very true. Yeah.
Richard Pryor, my God, the stories he would tell about his childhood, about being beaten mercilessly by his father, just horrible, horrible things, and he made them hilarious.
Yep. Yeah.
And
comedy is so powerful, and it's really sad to be living in a time where comedy is under such attack.
Oh yeah.
And it's because it is such a therapeutic thing. It's something we need in our culture. And it's not being allowed, basically, at this point, and that's too bad. Like, who would make Chopper today? Like,
nobody.
Nobody.
But here's the thing: there's going to be the backlash. Okay.
Sure.
There's going to be the backlash because I remember when political correctness became a thing in the early 1990s, and it completely took over. And then South Park came out, and I really think that the South Park movie was the death knell of political correctness, because I remember like some of the most PC people that I knew absolutely loved it. Right. And you could tell that even they were feeling suffocated by the prison that they had created.
Yeah, so it was a release, like a relief for them. Like,
exactly.
Okay, I can let this go finally and just like laugh about something. Yeah.
Yes, without worrying about it, and it's kind of like, I forget who it was. There was a comedian, some black dude. Some black dude is the generic. Some black dude, right? But I remember it was a comedian, and he said, it's terrible. I tell a joke about black people, and the white people in the audience, they look at the black people to see if it's okay for them to laugh.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and that's, oh god, man, it's just it's sad.
Yeah, I guess sometimes things just have to be taken all the way to the extreme
Yeah, they do.
until it hits that breaking point, and then
I
we
think
can
so.
get past it. Hopefully,
Yeah, yeah.
if it,
Oh, it's coming, dude. It's coming. The
yeah,
backlash is coming, and
yeah,
it's gonna be fierce. It's gonna be
right,
ferocious. So all
yeah,
those people, folks, take notes, screenshots, everything, because all those people that you know now who are social justice warriors, they're going to be claiming like, oh no, I never said that, I was never behind that. They're all going to be playing dumb. It's kind of like Vanilla Ice sold 8 million records, but
yeah,
gee, you can't find anybody that bought one now, can you?
right,
It's going to be like that.
yeah. I can't argue with that. I did, you know, obviously you had mentioned early in the show that Bronson probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for Chopper. And
Definitely not.
even, with these two promotional images,
I know, the
I
sepia.
feel like what's so interesting, yeah, the color tones are there, but then on the Chopper one, you have the kind of traditional halo effect around his head.
Yeah,
But
but
in a sense, Bronson's is exactly the same. It's just but if you take that light and just 45 degrees,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
the same. It's the same
Right.
damn image,
Yeah, yeah,
really.
but it's a nimbus. It's clearly a halo.
Yes, they're both halos.
Yep.
So even in the obviously, the Bronson director was very in tune with Chopper. Probably,
Nicholas Winding Refn, yeah,
yeah. And
who's one
he's
of our great filmmakers right now.
absolutely like he did. Was it?
Valhalla Rising, Drive.
Oh yes, yes.
Drive is an incredible movie,
Yeah, the
which
guy's
we may be
just.
discussing in a future installment of this
Oh,
show.
we absolutely have to, man. That movie is tremendous. But
Yeah,
yeah, oh, Neon Demon,
Neon Demon.
right?
But the interesting thing about him is that his movies do tend to be sort of like remakes. Valhalla Rising is straight up Werner Herzog. It's
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's very clearly, especially like the third act of that movie, it's straight up like Aguirre, the Wrath of God.
yeah,
And Drive is a direct remake of a Walter Hill movie called The Driver.
yes.
And Bronson is, in my opinion, folks, feel free to tell me I'm full of shit. I talk out of my ass sometimes, by my own admission, is a remake of Chopper.
I
Well, maybe
I
remake is too
absolutely
strong.
I think it
Remake is
is.
too strong a word.
I think that there's absolutely it's undeniable that they share DNA, which is why
Yeah,
we're comparing them. But like the attitude, the tone, what these movies make you feel when you're
yeah,
watching them could not be more disparate. I mean, it's very different experiences. Where Chopper gives you that uncomfortable feeling,
yeah.
and that sense of like laughing at something you shouldn't. Bronson really, the violence isn't. He really isn't about killing anyone. The violence almost seems like the physical violence of it feels like it's almost playful. It's almost like it
Yeah.
doesn't have that same uncomfortable vibe to me. Like,
No, Bronson, of course, folks should know, a real person who I don't know what his original name was, but he changed his name to Charles Bronson because,
yes,
hello, right? He wanted a badass name, so he was like, Charles. I want to be like Charles Bronson,
yeah,
and it's really interesting because I have a millennial friend who watched this movie, loved it to pieces, and didn't know who Charles Bronson was. That's
oh
to
wow,
say,
that's hilarious.
yeah,
Yeah,
so when you say Bronson, he thinks of this character.
yes,
He
right,
doesn't think of Charles, he doesn't think of the original Charles Bronson. But I mean, that tells you a lot about this guy that he changed his name to Charles Bronson. Was a bare knuckle fighter, and in and out of prison, and also an artist, a painter.
yes,
Somebody
yeah,
who, the same way that and that's the other similarity. The similarity is that these are criminals who became artists in prison.
correct. And both kind of were well received in their respective fields, like in terms of
Yes,
their art.
Yes. Except Chopper seems to have, like, clearly some kind of a neurological issue, whereas Bronson is self-thwarting. When things are going too well for him, and that you'll see, it's a running theme in the film. When things are going too well for him, he has to fuck them up.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating, and obviously, a lot of time in insane asylums, incredible amount of time in solitary confinement.
Ugh.
I mean, clearly the guy, if he wasn't going in mentally, just fractured.
Yeah.
Completely. There's no doubt about that. So, again, this is why the films are so comparable, because you've got the prison component, you've got them both becoming artists. They both have very serious mental issues, and they're not in control of their actions necessarily. They're driven by something they don't even understand. One of my favorite scenes in Bronson is when he takes one of the guards hostage in his cell.
Yeah.
And he call it the warden in the later part of the film. It's just fantastic.
Great performance.
So Bronson's like, he's prepared for the fight, and then the warden just asks him, well, what do you want? And Bronson's like, well, what have you got?
Yeah.
He has no idea what he wants. He just wants the chaos. He just whatever.
No. There's that scene that you're talking about, and folks, if you've ever wanted to see Tom Hardy's penis, you get a very good look at it in this.
That's true. I guess I wasn't going to go there, but yeah.
He's packing a rattlesnake in his trousers. That's all I'm saying. But he oils himself down. He takes off all his clothes so he can oil himself up. I forget what it is exactly that he's covering himself in, but it's it's something to make him slippery.
Yes.
Right? And he's talking to the guard that he's taken hostage, and he has no intention of hurting this guy.
Exactly. He's not about the violence, really. It's not his. That's not his big thing, is it?
It is, but it's more of. Well, it's like when he attacks the art teacher at the end. That's an act of him self-thwarting. That's an act of self-destruction. Yes. Chopper, when he got out of prison, was like, okay, I'm going to stay on the straight and narrow. I don't need to be a criminal. I don't need to be a criminal anymore. As he says in the film, I'm semi-bloody literate, and I'm selling millions of books, more than these college professors, right? So he was happy to kick back. He would do lecture tours and that sort of a thing, and was happy being a celebrity. But Bronson, on the other hand, he can't allow himself to have anything good. He can't allow himself to be redeemed.
Right.
But the scene that we're talking about, he's just looking forward to this brawl. He's looking forward to these guards coming in and to beat his ass, and he's not going to make it easy for him. It's like recreation. Yeah,
that's the thing. And of course, I'm not really going to. I don't know about the real persons, all the ins and outs. I know a little bit.
Yeah. Same
so
here.
I'm just, we're just looking at the film and what it presents. It probably isn't accurate all the time. But in the context of Bronson, I felt like he really was just seeking notoriety. This was his path to notoriety.
Yeah.
Being, always being this person that creates this chaos and this conflict, nonstop conflict with the prisons. It just seemed like that's all he knew how to get what he wanted, which was just eyes on him, attention, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm sure it got him a lot of respect in the joint too.
Right.
Because
course.
It's got to be boring in that motherfucker.
Yeah.
So it's you see this this drama going down. It's like, oh, did you see what Bronson did, man? Did you those guards, man? They beat the crap out of him. But did you see how many of them were walking out with black eyes and bloody noses and split lips and shit? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. He was
So
became like a professional prisoner.
exactly, I feel like he finally found his audience, his crowd, his people to
Yeah.
cheer him on, and that's how they present him in the film. And I can't talk about Bronson without that opening scene, man,
Yeah.
and that song.
Yeah.
It's the perfection of how the scene is shot, the red tones of it, that the fucking tune just dropping in perfectly. It
Refn,
just
man.
instantly knew I was in love with this movie the moment it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Refn's an incredibly talented filmmaker. I really enjoy his films to bits. He's one of the few people right now that when they come out with a new film, I will go see that film.
exactly.
And they're precious few right now.
Yeah, there just aren't many guys like that anymore, and
Yeah, like virtuosos and auteurs.
yes, and I don't know if that's because they don't exist or because they're not allowed to exist. They're
It's
not
because
given the opportunity.
it's the studio system. It's the
Yeah,
studio system. In the 70s, it was all about the auteur theory, right? The
yeah,
auteur theory being you have one guy who writes and directs the film. The notion being that when you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it fucks with the finished product.
right.
And you'll notice, I noticed very early on in my life from watching credits that if there were more than 3 people listed under screenplay by, the movie
Yes,
most likely was going to be a complete mess.
absolutely agreed. It's almost without fail the best filmmakers have been writer, director, and very obsessive about controlling every aspect of the film. And
Absolutely.
anytime you have a think tank or some kind of group think involved in, like, well, what are people going to respond to? Um, just don't bother. You know, I mean,
Yep.
I guess if you're just in it for the money machine aspect, fine, if that's what you want to do. But I don't think very many directors get into this for that reason. You know,
Oh, very few. Very few. But here's the thing, too, that you have to think about. The better that your film does, the greater your budgets are going to be, the more opportunities you're going to have. Maybe you could do something
right?
bigger. Maybe you could do something more ambitious.
Yeah.
So
So how
that's
did?
the other thing. They're thinking about the film that's going to be the next thing that they
Yes.
work on.
So if they can just get that one big success under their belt, they might be given the freedom. Where they,
Absolutely.
and
Oh,
why would you say, like, it seems like some of these guys earn that freedom. Sometimes I don't understand, like, wow, why is this particular guy just given what seems like total and creative freedom over their projects? And I'd say Alex Garland is one of those that it doesn't feel like he's had massive commercial success, but he seems to have
28 Days
total.
Later was a very big success because
Well,
remember,
that's
he
true.
started out as a screenwriter.
That's true.
And his films also are always semi remakes, right? Like
Mm,
28 Days Later is very much informed by the George Romero films, even though
sure.
it's technically not a zombie film. They're not
No.
zombies; they're the infected, right?
Yes.
They're contaminated human beings,
The
not
rage virus or
walking. Yeah,
whatever.
the rage
Yeah.
virus. They're not walking
Yeah.
corpses.
Yeah.
And then Annihilation is clearly him doing something that was inspired him doing his version of Stalker by
Yeah.
Andrei Tarkovsky.
Oh man,
And
I feel like maybe Stalker versus Annihilation might be. Is that our next episode?
that would be a great one. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen Stalker, it's it's in the top 3, in my opinion, top 3 best science fiction movies ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
And
in no particular order: 2001: A Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, Stalker,
right.
and
And then
Metropolis.
doesn't Stalker just have some crazy stories all around it too, like its creation?
Well, it's very similar to The Shimmer. That's to
Oh,
say,
right.
it's except instead of being called The Shimmer, it's called The Zone.
Ah, right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't, For me, I think Chopper's much more traditional filmmaking.
Hmm.
It's just very grounded, very like here's a stationary shot, and it's all about the performance.
Hmm.
It's all about really. It really is about Banna's performance, like
Oh my god.
100%. That's the heart and soul of the whole thing,
And it's a
and
cherry, man. It's a
it is,
cherry.
it is. It's beautiful. He deserves like it is an incredible, fascinating performance. He is it. He became it. Absolutely embodies it. But I think Bronson does the same thing. But for me, the artistic framework of Bronson, and I'm just a sucker for this stuff. I
Yeah,
like it when films get pushed to that kind of surreal
I do too.
Like I really love that. So I think that's why for me Bronson probably would win. Like if I had to choose one to watch over and over and over, like if I had to just this is the movie you have to watch 100 times, I'd choose Bronson.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at the beginning of Refn's career, the first thing he did was the Pusher series.
Hmm.
Have you seen those?
I think I started to watch the first one of those. I don't know that they actually grabbed me. I'm not sure.
The first one, you just want to watch that to get to the second one.
Okay.
Because Pusher 2 is maybe his masterpiece.
Okay.
It's a spectacular film.
Nice.
Mads Mikkelsen, who's a supporting character in the first film, it's that character's story.
Oh, I love Mads, dude.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So yeah, no, he's
Nice.
the
Okay.
shiznit. I love that. Yeah, yeah. So mainly watch, and it's not that Pusher's a bad movie, but
Yeah.
mainly you want to watch that to watch the second one.
Okay.
And then there's Pusher 3, which is the story of another character. That's like a side character, focuses on him, and that's really good too. They're all worth seeing, but Pusher 2 is just far and
Okay.
away like the standout.
So are you? I mean, I think maybe why you brought that up is like the Pusher series. Is that kind of more in tune with the vibe and attitude of Chopper
It's
rather than Bronson?
it's grittier.
Yeah.
It's more quote unquote realistic. Although I hate using that term because what's realistic. That's
Yeah. Right.
it's that's something that Scorsese said. He's I think he was talking about the fact that people were complaining that New York City in Eyes Wide Shut didn't look like New York City because it was like shot in London. And he was like, I don't understand what's wrong with people. Like, why do they think the films are supposed to represent reality?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Unless that's specifically the objective
Yeah, like
at the
documentary. Then
outset, then like
go watch a
what?
documentary
No.
if you want reality.
Right. I kind of have the same attitude toward like photorealistic artwork. I'm like, I appreciate the talent. I'm not saying it's
Yes.
not incredible, but I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Exactly, because where is the artist? And
Yeah.
in Bronson, it's very much about Refn seeing the world through this character's eyes. So it's
Yes.
more impressionistic.
Indeed.
Where Chopper
Yes.
is more about standing back and just watching like this human Tasmanian devil just causing chaos and getting
And
in
you,
trouble.
I don't feel like you had mentioned the guy that's based on Chopper,
Chopper Reed,
um,
yeah.
that he was kind of content, going around and kind of being famous and
Uncle
doing,
Chop Chop.
but it's like that didn't feel like it was present in the film at all.
No,
Like,
well, that's
I
because
didn't
it
get
ends
that
with
sense
him.
at all.
It ends with him, and it's a wonderful scene too because he gets interviewed by a local news station, and it ends with him with like some other prisoners and one of the guards that he's very friendly with, and they're all watching the interview, and they're just like, "Oh man, that was awesome, man! Way to go,
Right,
mate!"
right, right,
And they're
right.
clapping him on the back, and then the guard's like, "All right, man, gonna have to lock you up now."
Right.
And so
Yeah.
so he goes to bed and gets locked in his cell.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in real life, yeah, he managed to clean up his act.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, it is because I'm a big believer. Look, there's some people that need to be in prison. There's some people who are irredeemable that just need to be put in a cage because they can't be let out amongst other people because they're dangerous.
Yeah.
But I believe the vast majority of people in prison can be redeemed. And that, God, I'm going to go off on a lecture here, going to try not to, that we need to focus on rehabilitation, which is something that we as a society have given up on. Now, in Bronson, of course, where is he finding his rehabilitation? He's finding it through art.
Yes.
Through painting.
Right.
Through sculpture. And he has a career that's there, waiting for him, but he can't let himself have it. And he deliberately fucks it up. And I think that's in the film that comes across as a product of fear. Because are you looking up some of his paintings?
I think people, just to give an idea.
Oh, hell yeah. No, absolutely. But by all means, brother. But yeah, there's that term institutionalized. What it means is people who have been in prison for so long, they don't know what to do when they get let out. They need someone to tell them when to get up, when to eat, when to bathe, when to go to bed. They need that strict regimented life. And the thought of being let out terrifies them, so they'll do shit when their release time is coming up. They'll do shit so that their sentence will be longer, so that they won't have to get out and face the world, which is of course not a very friendly place to ex-convicts.
Correct. And I really agree. There's this this idea that prison's about punishment, but as a culture, I feel like we've got to decide here. Is it more important to punish someone relentlessly, or to ensure that they can come back enter the culture and actually contribute to it? I mean, let's just make that decision. But also, obviously one is better than the other, but human being, it's like, well, we can't make prison, it has to be absolute hell, or how is it teaching you a lesson? Well, just taking away a human being's ability to form normal human connections and have freedom and autonomy in their life, that's torture.
Yeah, prison sucks. Exactly. Enough. It's enough. And here's the thing. We're putting people in prison, and and of course, innocent people do get locked up all the time. And if they weren't criminals before they went in, they become criminals in prison. And eventually, guess what? These guys are coming out. So do you want them to be worse, or do you want them to be better? Do you want to teach them a trade, maybe, while they're in prison? Do you want to maybe educate these dudes and provide opportunities for them when they come out, so that they don't go and commit more crimes? Like, the recidivism rate in our country is ridiculous. Yeah. Especially compared to other countries where they do care about rehabilitation, because they're thinking, what happens when this guy gets out? So
exactly. Hey, Michael, that's cool. Incidentally, in my day job years back, I looked after a guy who was in prison with Bronson.
No,
that's awesome.
That's crazy, dude. That's interesting too, Michael. Like, he mentions that he was an interesting outsider artist. Yeah. Outsider art is a term, for those who aren't familiar, art that's produced by people who are mentally handicapped, people who are schizophrenic, people who are in prison, anybody that's considered a outsider. And it's very, very popular with the bourgeoisie. They like having art that's produced by people that have been sort of thrown away by society for some reason. Yeah. Which is fine, as long as those artists are making the money.
Well, sure, and there's always that element of exploitation.
Of course.
No matter what it is, but Bronson, most definitely, very fascinating to look at his stuff. There's so much going on in there. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of layers in there. So, just
not very subtle with all the dripping blood, but
yeah. Right. And I feel like, at least in the films, the way it was presented, he was on this path, and he maybe was starting to feel and believe that this art thing could replace that feeling he got by being notorious in prison. Like, it was
Yeah.
kind of working. But then
Yeah.
I think when the warden blew it off, because the warden was, just kind of egotistically like, I'm not going to give you what you want in this situation right now. I'm not going to give you a pat on the back for this. That seemed to break him,
Yeah.
push him over the edge.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's how it really went down, but like you said, he doesn't seem to be able to allow himself to have anything good.
Yep. Yeah.
Right when
Well,
it's about to get there, he has to like, okay, I'm taking my clothes off. I'm getting oiled up. Bring it on. Bring it on.
What do they call that when they bum rush prisoners in their cells? I forget. But yeah, no, it's I think that there's an element clearly of self-hatred there, and that feeling like, I probably don't deserve something good. But it's like, yeah, well, dude, it's not about that. It's about hopefully having like a career and being able to get out of prison and not being, and actually contributing something to society. I've heard stories. I remember hearing an interview with a guy who was a prison gourmet.
Yeah.
That's to say, he and like a group of other prisoners were doing things like they were making creme brulee, and they were using like their lighters to kind of like burn like the
Nice.
top.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's now like a gourmet chef.
There you go.
That works like for a major restaurant, or is actually a restaurant owner now. You see shit like that, and you're like, all right then.
Yeah, I mean, you can't leave how prisons operate in the control of prisons, because it's a for-profit business.
Yep.
Of course they want them to come back.
Yes.
That's how they make their money.
That's America. That's America.
So you can't allow that, the conflict of interest. And these conflicts of interest are everywhere in the culture.
Dude.
And it always creates these massive problems.
I don't know if you heard. Remember, there was that judge that was the Kids for Cash judge.
Mm-hmm.
He had a friend that owned like a juvenile criminal institution, like a juvenile penal institution, and basically a prison for kids. Yeah. And he sent like one girl to prison because of a MySpace page, like a satirical MySpace page that was making fun of like one of her teachers, or no, I'm sorry, the vice principal.
Right.
And that motherfucker, those kids are damaged for life, and
right.
and some of them didn't make it. Some of them committed suicide while they were in prison. And they threw the book at him. I know it was like, all right, we're gonna get some justice here. Nope, they just let him out.
Unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, this shit,
Membership has its privileges, man. Membership has its privileges. They're turning this. They're turning this. The whole country's turning it. Well, yeah, like Lucius says, we're all in prison now.
Right.
And the country is looking more and more like a prison.
Yeah.
And you look at like the schools and how they're like prisons now, and that's all to get us acclimated.
Yeah.
So you just get used to being frisked. You go through metal detectors and shit like that. It just all becomes normal.
It's fucking awful, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very disheartening.
But it's I love that about art and film. These films we're talking about, how it leads us down these paths of discussion.
Yep.
They're thought provoking. So I guess this is that moment where. Like, I think I already know the answer, obviously. So, which film do you think is just a better film?
Oh, I prefer Chopper. I think Chopper is the better movie. My God, a lot of it has to do with Eric Bana's performance.
Okay.
And I was talking, I mentioned before how there's a lot of humor in the film. A lot of the humor comes from his performance. And
I would
that
say
crazy,
all of it.
that crazy smile, that gold tooth.
Yep.
It's just a very, very vivid characterization. He brings that character to life in a really startling way, and I just find it more engrossing. Bronson, once again, Nicholas Winding Refn, excellent filmmaker. It's an excellent film, and Tom Hardy gives an absolutely great performance. But I just think personally that Chopper's the better movie.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
that's just,
I can't argue. Obviously,
that's just my opinion. No, well, it's a subjective thing,
It is. Well, sometimes it is. I would say that
yeah.
there are times where objectively something is just garbage, and if someone can't see that it's garbage, well,
that's
I don't know what to say about that. But in this instance, it's like you could choose. To me, you could choose either film, and it'd be like, I get that.
You can't lose. You can't lose, folks. If you watch either of these movies, you can't lose. You're gonna watch something. You're gonna watch a great movie.
Yeah, they're great, and like you said, a lot of people missed Chopper, whereas Tom Hardy's kind of rise to super international stardom.
Yep.
Probably retroactively helped Bronson quite a bit.
Absolutely.
People, you got to check out Chopper. It is just one of those unique experiences. I don't think there's anything quite like it. But Bronson, for me, just on pure enjoyment, just the visual feast that it presents, the way it's structured, and the performances involved, I get more enjoyment out of Bronson. It makes me feel Chopper. It doesn't make me feel good watching it. Like I actually feel kind of. It's so morbid to me. Like like you say, the humor is always connected to this brutality.
It's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing.
It's like I get it. It's brilliant. I think it's a wonderful achievement from the filmmaker. But when I watch Bronson, it's more. I'm just like I'm having a good time,
Yeah. Well, I'm a sick bastard that way.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, for sure.
And folks, we totally forgot to mention the scene where he cuts his ears off.
Right. Because he's that's his way to get, because he was going to get killed.
Solitary. Yeah. He was going to get whacked. Yeah. So he has a friend cut his ears off with a razor, and he's just going like that. He's just cut them off, like sawing.
Oh man.
Oh god. And if you have a chance of getting your hands on the DVD, I highly recommend that. I think that's one of the things that is really sad about the fact that we're moving to a streaming world, is you don't get the bonus features. And the Chopper DVD has an interview with Chopper Reed as a bonus, as an extra.
Yeah.
And it is the director coming to visit him on his ranch, at his house, and telling him that the movie's going to come out in 2000. I was telling you this before, Roddy, and it must have been 98, I think, at the time. Yeah. and so Chopper Reed's like, 2000? 2000? He just couldn't get over it.
Yeah, it really is great film, and damn, I don't, Eric Bana, what is this? Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks, I wasn't going to mention it, but that is where I checked it out.
Awesome.
I would have been down.
Out,
I was
people.
like, I was looking at streaming. I was looking to try and rent it from I don't even think I could rent it from Amazon to watch.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't find this shit. So I did. I actually searched YouTube just on the off chance.
Right.
And sure enough, unfortunately, it's not. It's not great quality, but it's out there. So check it out. If they're not going to give us a way to buy the thing, well,
yeah, exactly.
Watch it how you can.
Absolutely. And my goodness, there are YouTube rips
Yeah.
of like Blu-rays that are on there now that like really look good.
Yeah,
So
sure. um, the thing you were saying about the extras, and I think that is a really unfortunate side effect of the, all the streaming services. And my guess, obviously, they do the extras to boost sales for the DVDs. Like there's
yeah,
motivation, there's financial incentive to do that.
yeah.
So
Well,
the streaming
DVDs.
services, they don't really have that added incentive for the extras.
Yeah.
But as things evolve, I think maybe what you'll be like premium, you'll be able to be a premium streaming service member, and maybe they'll start offering extras like that.
Possibly, I know Shudder has making ofs like they have Mandy on there, which is a spectacular movie,
Yeah.
uh, and there's that has like the bonus features. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
we'll see more of that. And then of course going on YouTube, very often you'll find special features from DVDs on there. You just got to look
Yeah.
and you will find this stuff.
Yeah. So, something that I think would be fun for this series is at the end,
Hmm.
whatever the kind of the theme of the films we're breaking down for that episode, maybe make an additional recommendation. So for this episode, it'd be like prison movie. Uh,
Ah,
what do you?
yeah, I'm gonna have to go with. Well, it's not really a prison movie or like a career criminal movie because I'm thinking,
Mm,
uh, you know, um,
I would say at
there's
least a chunk of the film, if we're talking about Chopper and Bronson, has to be take place in prison. Doesn't have to be like all of it, but it should be like a chunk of it, I would say.
because the movie that I'm thinking of is a movie with Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
I think it's called Short Time. I'm just looking it up on the IMDb right now. And the 70s, of course, like we were talking about before, that was the auteur era. That was also, the 70s is widely regarded, rightfully so, as the peak of American cinema. And
Right.
there were a lot of really great, gritty crime movies that came out during that era. And there's a Straight Time. Yeah.
Straight time.
Straight Time, yeah, which is 1978 with Dustin Hoffman, and that is about a really, really small-time criminal. We'd seen all these films about big gangsters, Al Capone, that sort of thing. This is about a guy that's at the absolute bottom rung. There's a scene that's sort of climactic where he hides in a store so he can break through the wall with I think a little pickaxe to like rob the store that's like next to it.
Right.
Right?
I'm
And he's
trying
trying to
to.
not make he's trying not to make
Yeah.
it like too much noise. And it's like really dramatic and you're looking at this and you're like, wow, there's a lot of drama in like this petty like robbery. It's very, very good. I like that movie a lot, folks. Definitely check that out. I can't say
Okay.
that it's a prison movie, but as a character study of a career criminal, yeah, Straight Time for sure.
Okay. I can't recall. I mean, I can't recall if I've seen this or not, but I'll be checking it out. It looks really cool. Um,
As for prison
Dustin
movies,
Hoffman.
what were you thinking?
I was going to throw a recommendation for this one right here.
I have not seen this.
Yeah, Brawl in Cell Block 99, Vince Vaughn. This is you can see here, the writer director of Bone Tomahawk, which is just
Excellent
what a
movie.
rockin' movie. And in the vein of that, I think this director has this really great way of, there's this high level of realism in the film you're watching, and then all of a sudden, almost like in just some crazy weird way, something almost, I wouldn't say supernatural, but like surreal, almost like it doesn't belong, like it's over
Right.
the top. It's
Yeah.
beyond reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's like a sharp
injected in, and
turn.
you're like, whoa! I
Right.
did not see that coming. Like in Bone Tomahawk with the,
The
these
troglodytes.
crazy tribal guys and just cutting people in half, and you're
And
like,
they've got these
holy
like
shit!
extra these bones in their
Yes,
throats that make them release like this howling sort of whistling sound.
yes,
It's like they're clearly not human.
yes. There's something
There's
like
something
again,
else. Like
not
yeah,
maybe not supernatural, but it is
yeah,
otherworldly. And
yeah.
Brawl in Cell Block 99, Vince Vaughn, really quite a performance from him. And just like Bone Tomahawk, it introduces things that you're like, whoa, this is unexpected. So it's a lot of fun for sure.
I will check that out. And Slipstick mentions The Prisoner, the TV series, which I'm a
Oh yeah,
huge, enormous fan of.
nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
folks, if you've never seen that, that's
okay.
astounding.
Is that is that available on a streaming service right now?
It's
Flips?
gotta be. It's gotta be. Hunger
Yeah,
is Hunger's meant to be a good one too, with Michael Fassbender, IRA prisoner that went on hunger strike. Oh, I've never seen that, Michael.
I think I did see that quite a while ago. Yeah, Fassbender, man, he really can. He can put in a great performance, but
It,
he has to be cast correctly,
yeah, and
big
he's in
time.
every like he's one of those guys. He's kind of like Idris Elba. He's in every movie, it seems,
Yeah,
but you never mind seeing him. You're always, you know what
right.
I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like he's always a
yeah,
welcome presence, but you're kind
yeah,
of like, damn, like does this guy ever rest?
yeah, yeah. One of the favorite movies I've seen him in, I think it's called Frank. It's
Yes. Yeah,
where
yeah,
he's
yeah.
wearing the giant hat. He's
Yeah,
like a
which is about a
musician,
real
and
guy. Yeah, it was about a
yeah,
real
I love
guy.
that shit, dude. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
so
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Uh, Very good
yeah.
movie.
And he would like,
Well,
and he would talk like he had his like a clothespin on his nose.
yes,
Yeah, that was a
you
real
know,
dude. That was a
yeah,
real
and
dude. Yeah,
the
yeah,
the songs that he would create were just so epically awesome.
yeah.
I
Yeah, they were.
absolutely loved it. Funny movie
Yeah,
and heartbreaking too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's definitely worth seeing.
yeah. Well, damn, Brian, this was a lot of fun. I
This
think
was this was cool.
we're filling it out, like we're getting a sense of the format. Um, Next week, I want to have a nice, flashy, slick intro for us, and yeah, we'll get better at doing this and having maybe a little bit more structure to it because we just went all over the damn place.
Yeah, but also we have got awesome people in the chat that have been
Yes,
contributing.
always. Yeah.
Felix Haas, the original Prisoner series or the remake, really, dude, really, bro? You have to ask that question. You have to ask that question.
Yeah.
That oh
Right.
god, the remake with Jim Caviezel was hot garbage. I couldn't make it all the way through.
So how old are we talking here on the original series?
Oh, like 1968, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Cool.
by Patrick McGowan. He was in a TV series called Danger Man, and I think it was released as Secret Agent Man here in the United States. And he was offered the role of James Bond,
Oh, nice. Wow. And
and
he
he
turned it down?
turned it down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he
Oh,
turned it
no.
down to make this TV series, The Prisoner, and it was only going to be 7 episodes.
Yeah.
But the producer that he approached said, "Well, how about if we make it like 17?" I forget how many episodes they made entirely, but there aren't
Yeah.
that many,
Yeah.
and it's visionary, and it is more relevant now than it was when it was made, and that's always a
Ooh.
sign of great art.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm gonna try and hunt that down.
Oh,
Maybe
dude, you were
start
in for a
watching it
treat.
tonight. That sounds really
Oh,
cool.
dude, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat.
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, I really want to thank you for joining me, Brian, and just
Oh, my pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
being down to be a part of this thing. I'm hoping that we can find a way to promote it outside our kind of existing spheres and
See what we
get
could
some more
do.
people in here. And but this was fun, and maybe Stalker and Annihilation. We'll talk about it next week.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see.
So thanks for being here, and I've got the link for Six Gun Gorilla down below in the description.
Oh, thanks, man.
Brian is the creator and author of that. If you haven't checked it out, you really ought to. Fantastic book. And thanks to the
Thanks,
chat for
man.
being here.